All right, so let's talk about Jared Goff for a second. He's an interesting player, right? Obviously, he went to the Super Bowl, and it wasn't he was just along for the ride. I mean, that team was built around their offense, and a huge part of why they were successful was because of good play from Jared Goff. Since then, it hasn't been as good. His numbers have dropped the past 2 seasons, which results in the Rams moving off of him and, going with Matt Stafford, who obviously, Matt Stafford's great. There's no shame in getting replaced by him. But I thought it would be interesting to sort of talk about Goff and talk about why have we seen this drop-off from him, and is it something that can be fixed, or is it not with Detroit? So let's just get into it. So first, let's look at this number. This is interesting. So this table is, the year on the left column, and then it's going to be his passer rating when the team was running play action versus not running play action. And what's really interesting is going to be the column all the way to the right. So, 2016 is at the bottom, and that's where the biggest differential was between when he had success with play action versus not play action, although a big part of it was he was just really bad that year, so just having something to help him out was all he really needed. And then, it goes down, but it's still solid, significantly different in terms of 2017 with, an 8.5 point differential. And in 2018, it's actually 15.9, which is actually even more significant when you just go over and look at the numbers themselves. His passer rating under play action was actually worse in 2018 than it was in 2017, but his passer rating when there was no play action was significantly worse, which is also interesting given the fact that he was arguably better in 2018 than 2017. At least that's our perception of him. I also should mention that this table does include playoff games, so that's why, if you're wondering why some of this math may or may not add up, it's because of the playoff games included. And then you have 2019 and 2020. Very little, if at all, differential. In fact, in 2019, he was even worse when there was play action than when there was no play action. So I found that very fascinating, given the fact that the Rams' offense is largely built around play action and how we have seen that drop off the past 2 years. This is another stat that jumped out at me. It's his passer rating on passes 20 plus yards. The first 3 years of his career, he was pretty good at it. First year, not that great. But again, he wasn't good at anything his first year. This was actually one of the things he was still solid at. And then 2017, 2018, you would probably like it to be over 100, maybe even over 105. But it's still not horrible. But then 2019 was just a complete mess of a passer rating of 44.0. Last year, not quite as bad, but still not good at 74.3. So we have 2 things to watch out for already, right? Why hasn't he been as good with play actions, and why hasn't he been as good down the field? One last stat, this isn't anything too crazy, but something worth mentioning is that he's never been the best under pressure, as you see, only a 50 passer rating under pressure, but when he's kept clean, a passer rating well over 100, and, when you're under pressure, that tends to have a bit more variance. He's usually averaging around mid-60s, so you could argue there was a little bit of luck factor last year, but nothing too crazy, just a small thing to add on top of it. So let's get into the film now. We'll start off with this play. One of the things I thought of when watching tape that could be an explanation for why the play action has done so much worse is because basically teams sort of know what kind of play actions the Rams run now, or they didn't really know that when, Sean McVay first entered the league, which was that second season, that for those first couple of years with Goff and McVay, that's when they really thrived. So like a play like this, which is, a fake handoff to Goff's right, but then he rolls over to his left, and he's going to hit somebody underneath. Like, watch. As you see, it's going to work. They get the first down on a 3rd and 1. That's all they wanted, but it's just not getting that many more yards, whereas perhaps when McVay was first doing that, it was getting more, because not to say that it was like a totally new strategy that no one has done before, but he did kind of popularize it and make it a much bigger part of his offense that we hadn't really seen before, at least since I've been breaking film down. So that was my first thought, and then I kind of kept thinking, okay, what are some other potential reasons why the play action could have gotten worse after 2018? What are some differences from the team in 2018 to 2019? Oh, right. That's when Todd Gurley was Todd Gurley. 2018, he was a monster and an MVP candidate that year. And then he wasn't, they didn't have that kind of running game. I've talked a lot about how having an elite running back is underrated. Having a, good running back is probably overrated. I don't really care the difference between like the 10th best running back and the 20th best running back, but I care a lot about getting a top 5 running back, which Todd Gurley was probably a top 1 running back, and that made the play action work a lot better. Of course it did. That's got to be, if not the only factor, at least probably the biggest and most significant factor, is just losing Todd Gurley has really affected him, and in one of the ways that it's affected him the most has been play action. So that's interesting to me that once Todd Gurley leaves, you see his numbers drop off, and you specifically see his play action numbers drop off, which is a big indicator of why he hasn't been playing as well. And maybe it's not a thing of the offense is figured out. It's just that he was kind of getting a little masked and getting things a little bit easier for him due to how easy it was to run play action with a guy like Todd Gurley on your team. I mean, there was stuff like this too, which this isn't anything crazy, but it's zone coverage that Tampa Bay is in, and basically what the Rams want to do is run the ball, get you in zone coverage, and set things up for Jared Goff, which is what they're doing on this play. Watch, right when this play starts, so a receiver pushes, a defensive back further back, so now when another receiver cuts over towards the side, he's easily able to get open. And as you see, it's going to be complete. It's nothing crazy, but you know what? The Rams are able to do this very well, and they always have been, and Jared Goff has always been able to do this kind of stuff well. So it's easier when you have a running back who can get other teams into zone, but even without it, zone's going to be ran from time to time, and you can run zone busters and have success with them, especially when there's routes that can still work against man as well. Okay, now this play. Let's talk about this weirdness of him not being able to throw the ball deep too well, seemingly out of nowhere, right? Why hasn't he been as good these past couple of years? And again, it's never been his biggest strong suit, but it's never been atrocious either, up until, of course, the last couple years that we're talking about. So watching the tape, I was instantly confused as to why the numbers were bad, because the tape at first did not back it up, although I will get to it in a second. You have a receiver running a deeper route. It's a 3rd down and 1, man coverage. This is where Goff is going to try to throw to, and also keep in mind, big situation just outside of field goal range. This is a huge play. However, Goff takes a snap. It's a rollout. There's pressure, but he throws and makes a great throw down the field. Again, it wasn't really 20 yards from the line of scrimmage, although it was kind of close, but it's a deeper throw, and he had to go back about 7-8 yards to make the throw, so he threw it over 20 yards, and that's kind of my point, I guess, with Jared Goff, is he has a great arm, so why is the deep ball not working for him? Well, let me use this play as an example. So it's going to be, I believe this is quarters coverage. I can't really tell. And to be honest, trying to figure out, how good of a job he does with the deep ball is difficult enough when you don't have all 22 footage, because I can only see what I can see. There's only broadcast footage available right now, although it appears as though we will be getting all 22 back at some point, which is nice to know. But anyways, it's just going to be a deep route, and watch what happens. So Jared Goff takes the snap. He is going to make this throw deep down the field, and as you see, it's not open at all, and it's one of those kind of head-scratching decisions. I mean, it's not head-scratching, right? It's a 3rd down and 12. It's kind of an arm punt. You're down 14-3 in the 3rd quarter. You're trying to make something happen. I understand the logic behind it, but this is kind of the thing about Goff is basically he makes his decision, and then that's his decision. And no matter what he reads, he's going to make the decision that he made pre-snap. And as you see, this one falls incomplete. Goff totally could have waited a second, tried to find something else open. I'm not going to kill him for that decision, but let's be honest. We all know Jared Goff, and you could argue that one wasn't the best example. I maybe could have found a better one, but my main point is that we all know this about Jared Goff. He doesn't make the best post-snap reads. When he sees something he likes on paper, he's going to make that throw, and we saw it get him into a lot of trouble during the Super Bowl. That was a huge way that New England was able to take advantage and sort of destroy the Rams in that sense. So that's a big thing. Now, this hasn't been a problem for the beginning of Jared Goff's career, specifically those first 2 years with McVay, because, well, I mean, you could just scheme stuff up. And they were able to scheme stuff up down the field, too. It wasn't just this underneath stuff. So I think that's a big part of why you saw his passer rating do well deeper down the field. But quite frankly, when you make bad decisions down the field are going to hurt you more. So that's why he throws more interceptions down the field than maybe he does over the middle, because he'll make those bad decisions. And I think that's probably what I would point to, because that's the only thing I got. Again, his deep ball isn't bad. It's possible it was just luck like that. I do think luck factors in to some degree, and especially deep down the field, sometimes you just throw up 50-50 balls and your receiver makes a catch and you look great. Like on that play, if it was complete due to a great wide receiver play, well, now the quarterback looks like a genius. You think about, first play that comes to my mind is Brady in the NFC Championship game to Chris Godwin, threw up a throw he should not have thrown, but Godwin made a great catch, and now Brady gets a big chunk added to his play. So, one play can make a bigger swing deep down the field. That could also be a factor. But to me, I think a huge deal with Goff is the loss of Todd Gurley. I think that's the main takeaway here, is that if you don't have a great running game, it's going to be tough with Goff. And maybe it's not maybe the Rams' issues these past 2 years haven't necessarily been Goff has played poorly. It might be the fact that, you lost a MVP candidate running back. I don't know. I think it's interesting. And again, the point of this video wasn't totally to talk about what Goff does well and poorly, because we already kind of know who Jared Goff is as a player. It was more so just to see how he's changed from, the 2-year stretch 4 years ago and 3 years ago to 2 years ago and last year. So it's interesting. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.